don't be intimidated that they will try to reduce you and mock you and stop you because you've been adopted as a child of God. So whatever your David versus Goliath situation is, you've got the sling, you've got the 5 stones, and 4 of them are backup. David only needed 1, remember? Each of us has our own battles. Each of us has that Goliath who's trying to stare us down, but you persevere. You dig deep, you reach up, you persevere. You can look around today and you can see in this arena so many different situations represented, different challenges, different backgrounds. Married and single, and moms and grandmas, and teachers and students, gals who are working inside the home, working inside and outside of the home, and all these women, all of you, extraordinary. We're different, but we are connected because we are women after all, and we are upheld by an extraordinary faith in He who expects us to get out there and do something, to not just be preaching to the choir or sitting back and complaining and maybe just occupying space, or Wall Street for that matter, which, while others are affecting culture, while others are getting things done and making things happen, no, we are absolutely not to just merely occupy space. We're created to make a difference in this world around us, in this world that needs you, in your family, in a business, a community, in our country, in the 4 corners of the world. And we fulfill that by maintaining a passionate faith no matter what's going on around you. You will always have challenges. I say to my kids all the time, sometimes, they tell me, I don't want to hear it. Sometimes I tell them, buck up or stay in the truck. God never promised us that it would be easy, did He? He told us He'd pull us through, though. The greater the challenge, though, gals, what you're going to find is the greater the Lord reveals Himself to us. Now, as for me, it's been, and Todd will agree, a real uneventful last few years, huh? I know. No, much has transpired. Sometimes when it rains, of course, and all you have is your faith to cling to when one thing after another tries to stop you, tries to just face you down. And I've learned that there is purpose in it all. Now, the things that I go through politically, when only I'm involved, I think, okay, by the grace of God, I can handle it, no problem. But when my children become a target, well, like you mama grizzlies, the mama grizzly in me comes growling out too. You don't touch our cubs, right? That's why I think women should be in charge. Not to be sexist or anything here, but you don't touch our cubs. We are concerned about the future of our country and debt that we're incurring. We don't want our kids and our grandkids and our great-grandkids to have to pay the bills that we're incurring today. I think if more of our leaders had that kind of mentality, that mama grizzly type of mentality, we wouldn't be facing a lot of the national government problems that we're facing today, because we are concerned about the future for our cubs, for our kids and their kids. People have asked me, reporters have in the interviews, how do you weather some of the storms? And I answer I don't know if they understand a word that I'm saying, but I say, hey, when you know that you know that you know where your strength comes from and what's really important in life, and then all the petty political and made-up media stuff on the periphery, that pales in comparison to what really matters and to have right priorities. I know that our stuff that we go through, it is nothing compared to those who are going through really tough trials, maybe a sick child, a critically ill parent, maybe losing someone in a war zone, trying to hold on to your job or your house, some of those very, very tough and real challenges out there. Our issues pale in comparison. I believe that ultimately, if you believe that He's got the whole world in His hands and He causes all things to work together for good, that enables us. I know it enables me to stay focused and to keep things in perspective, to keep things grounded. And I have to do that, especially in the arena that I am in the media and in politics, as I witness intimately every day a problem that I think is paramount. I think this problem really is in our society tearing at the fabric of our democracy. And instead of just complaining about this problem I'll share with you, I'm trying to do something about it. It is the lack of integrity in the world of journalism today. And this, as I say, it tears at the fabric of our democracy. I have a degree in journalism and communications. I started out as a sports reporter with such respect for the craft, such respect for reporting truth and, just learning the 5 W's of who, what, where, when, and why of a story. And that's what you reported. And it was all to be based on truth. I had such a respect for really basic human dignity that the written and spoken word would be able to illustrate. But in these years since studying it, I really witnessed the perversion of truth that's reflected in much of our media. And I've come to conclude, oh man, especially recently after reading some of the stuff that is supposedly reported about conservative women, about Christians in general, in the mainstream, I call them the mainstream media, I am more convinced than ever that we must do something about this problem, if not, reporters, out of respect for the craft, the vocation of journalism, if not out of respect for our First Amendment right to freedom of speech and freedom of the press, then at least out of respect for the military, again, our men and women in uniform fighting in war zones to protect our freedom of press, to protect that First Amendment right. And I say it bluntly. I ask reporters wherever I go, and oftentimes it is a takeaway in a speech or an event. I look right at them and I say, just quit making things up. That's all. That's pretty simple. And I call them out on it. But bottom line, and I say this, I share this because it's kind of an example of instead of just griping about something, we really got to try to affect the change, do something about it. Bottom line, I can keep things in perspective because, well, God has given me some opportunities, some situations to keep me grounded. He's allowed me to just keep it real. I've had to rely on my faith to get me through some things in the press that I read about, and I'm beyond scratching my head going, who are they talking about? And then I realize they're talking about me and my family. Let me give you one example. Here I am as governor of the largest state in the union, very, very busy with ethics reform and oil and gas developments that we have going on in Alaska, and things are going well. We're working on both sides of the aisle to get things done, and I've got like 86% approval rating, and by the way, after I was tapped for VP, their approval ratings plummeted, believe me, but things are going well up there in Alaska, and I'm serving as the nation's, the president of the Interstate Oil and Gas Compact Commission, and working with other states on how we would get our nation energy independent. And there I am, first woman elected governor in Alaska, and youngest governor ever elected, and I'm pregnant. And yes, like Sarah of old, I laughed too when I found out that I was pregnant, because I was no spring chicken when I found out. In fact, I found out, I'm praying, I'm like, oh, yes, God, my name is Sarah, but my husband's not Abraham, it's Todd. But I'm pregnant, and the other kids are very busy with sports and school, and Todd's working up on the North Slope in the oil fields, and it's about a 1,600-mile commute from the North Slope oil fields down to the governor's mansion in Juneau, and got a very busy life, and here I am pregnant, and that's kind of exhibit A of maybe what would be perceived as less than ideal circumstances. And then I'm kind of getting my arms wrapped around that, knowing that some of the critics, I could hear them already going, yeah, we finally elect ourselves a woman governor, and like she goes off and gets herself pregnant. Some of those old sourdoughs up there in Alaska, I'm thinking that's what they're going to say, Kind of exhibit A, though, less than ideal circumstances, perhaps. Get my arms wrapped around that. And then the doctor tells me, well, there's a chance that your child, your son, at only about 12 weeks along, that he'd have Down syndrome. And I said, called out to God again, because my little world kind of stopped spinning right then when she told me that. And I said, oh no, Lord, that's not part of the plan, because you always promised that you would never give us anything that we couldn't handle. And I don't think I could handle that. I don't think I am equipped to handle bringing into this world a child with special needs. I don't know if I'm compassionate enough. I don't know if I'm patient enough. I don't know if my heart can be wrapped around this. My sister has a child with autism, and in our family we've always said, oh, the Lord knows what he's doing. He gave Heather, the child with special needs, because she is the more nurturing of all the family. She's kind of like the Martha Stewart of all the girls in the family. You know, God knew what he was doing, and I always thought deep down, he knows me well enough to know I don't know if I could handle this. But then when some further tests showed that our son would be born with Down syndrome, my world did stop spinning, and I didn't know how I would handle it. And again, I called out to the Lord saying, but you promised that you would only give us your best, and I'm always preaching to everybody else. He's never going to give you something that you can't handle. I don't know if I can handle this. Didn't know if I could, didn't know if I was equipped. And our doctor gave me information on babies with Down syndrome, and I read that 85 to 90% of babies diagnosed with Down syndrome, they're aborted. And that tells you, if only for a split second, it tells you, oh, these circumstances are beyond less than ideal. They must be impossible to handle. Otherwise, why would all these babies be taken? Why would they be aborted? Society's trying to tell us, I guess, that it's not fair to the child. If I've always been pro-life, and I've always counseled others to choose life. And God took me through a situation, though, where I believe he was whispering to me, are you going to walk the walk, or are you just going to talk the talk? And what the Lord was able to do in my heart, in my soul at that time, was strengthen my pro-life views, allow me to be more compassionate, and to be able to empathize with what other women would go through, if only in that split second where fear overtakes you and where you're getting a message from society that you're not capable of handling the situation that is before you, so perhaps you just want to make it disappear, make it go away, because you're not equipped to handle it. But God got us through that stage, and I'll tell you, it took me many, many, many months to get through that stage of being able to wrap my arms around it. When Todd finally returned home from work, and I told him that the baby had an extra chromosome, that he would be born with Down syndrome, and I said, Todd, are you asking why us? And Todd, he just looks at me and he says, why not us? And he just kind of brought me right back down to truth. That yes, God would be able to pull us through this. And I'll tell you what, the minute that Trig was born, the greatest manifestation of answered prayer you could ever imagine, God just filled me up with nothing but pure, overwhelming joy. He's changed our eyes. I know that when we look at our son, all we see is perfection. When we look at Trig, we say, okay, there's the world standards of perfection, and then there's God's standards. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters, his standards of perfection.